I think gender-based violence itself is a wider context, trying to define violence that it's targeted at persons based on their gender. And it's a word sometimes used interchangeably to refer to violence against women at the same time too, because of the proportionate disadvantage that women face in society. Often in literature, you hear people talking about patriarchy being at the root of GBV, because over time, culture, social norms, beliefs, values, practice, etc., have made women and children, as a matter of fact, including boys and men, to internalize violence as a way of living, you know. And over time, when this happens, you notice that within culture, in society, in families, when it is directed at the woman or the girl child, it is expected to be accepted and tolerated. So it appears as if when there's a case of GBV, it's expected that the girl, the woman, etc., will have to accept it as normal, you know, and that's why it becomes very pervasive. And we've moved from society and culture to take that even to formal spaces. So you notice that there's violence from the family, and patriarchy sits at the center of it, and then you're having also workplace violence, which also affects progress, it affects productivity, etc. In tertiary institutions, for example, where I work, we've been talking about sexual harassment, which is also a form of gender-based violence, targeted at young ladies. We're not saying that boys on campus also, or male lecturers, etc., are not experiencing violence. But we're talking about proportionately, who faces it more. And until we're able to bridge that gap, the discussion will continue to tilt towards the female and also the women and the girl child. Because for now, the data speaks more, you know, because they say data speaks. So if you look at the data, you'll notice that it affects the girl child, it affects the woman more than the man. So the GBV
but should
comes
we
in
be
different
talking,
forms.
I'm sorry, should we be talking proportion? Earlier you had mentioned, you know, that boys, girls, women, everybody now, it appears that a lot of people see violence as a way of life. Shouldn't it be focused on, you know, reorientating our people rather than, you know, proportion? Okay, if it's, perhaps we'll be saying then that if it's balanced, then it's fair.
Sorry, I don't know, I have to laugh. I didn't bring in issue of proportion for the fact that I wanted to say if it's balanced, then it's fair. What we're saying is that the interventions, we need numbers to intervene. We need numbers for budgetary purposes. So you don't just intervene out of nothing. So you must dig the data to find out what is the extent of the impact of GBV. And so the numbers come up. Of course, orientation, changing people's mindset, reorientation, advocacy, etc., sits at the center of it. We need to work with both boys and men, not because we want them to only partner with women and girls, but because we want the men to work on men. Are you getting it? So the interventions vary.
Is it just men working on men, or
we need the men to work also on men, because we are trying to dismantle a patriarchal structure now. Are you getting it? That is making this thing to be what? Pervasive. Over time, it passes from culture to culture to culture, and that's why I talked about the culture of impunity and tolerance for GBV, because it passes from one generation to other. Of course, we have women who also sit at the center of ensuring that these things are perpetuated.